Welcome to the Urban Herald Deep Dive. We're the team that digs into the latest cultural trends, travel shifts, all that stuff, and we really unpack it for you, give you the details you need. And today, well, we're diving into something kind of contradictory, actually. Imagine this. You're sinking into, like, super luxurious Egyptian cotton sheets. There's maybe a nice bottle of wine chilling over there. Room service is just a phone call away. But then you get this feeling, the person who stayed here before you, maybe they didn't exactly check out. Ever.
Right. And that contrast, that's really the heart of this new travel niche we're looking at today. It's showing how dark tourism is, evolving. It's moving away from just being about morbid curiosity, maybe slightly grim sights, towards something really sophisticated, high-end even. This isn't about slumming it. It's five-star luxury, but it comes packaged with, well, centuries of stories and lore.
Exactly. So here at the Urban Herald, we've been analyzing our sources on this evolution. We're calling it comfort dark tourism. And our mission today is simple. Give you a really comprehensive guide to this whole thing, staying in these incredible historic places, impeccably kept up, that actually embrace their ghostly reputations. It's an asset, not something they hide.
Yeah, the core idea is key here. The main reasons people go are, first, the amazing service, the stunning architecture, the deep history, the ghost stories, the spectral folklore. That's like an extra layer, an enriching narrative that adds a thrill, but, in a very controlled, comfortable way.
Oh, okay. And this is where it gets really interesting, I think. The momentum behind this, especially in 2025, it's kind of unexpected. It's being driven hard by Gen Z travelers. And they're not finding these places through, like, old history websites. It's TikTok, it's Instagram, very visual platforms.
Oh, absolutely. The visual side is critical. We looked at the hashtag comfort dark tourism, hashtag millions of views. And what you see is, well, it's stunning interiors, gorgeous architectural shots, historic four-poster beds. But then there's just that hint of something eerie mixed in.
It's like an aesthetically pleasing ghost hunt, right? These younger travelers, they're dealing with so much anxiety, generally climate, economy, politics, yet they're drawn to these places. What do you think the psychology is there? What's the appeal?
I think it's that paradox of controlled danger. It really is. If you go to a genuinely ruined site, somewhere really tragic, the feeling can be overwhelming, right? Uncontrolled. But staying in a, say, $500 a night haunted castle, that offers safety. You're engaging with history, even potentially tragedy, but you know those sheets are clean, the plumbing works perfectly, and there's a concierge downstairs ready to help, maybe even move you if the ghost gets a bit too active. It's a curated dip into the historical unknown.
Okay, let's dig into that distinction more in Section 1. Elegance, eerie, and crucially, ethical travel. We need to be clear how this is different from traditional dark tourism, which often has that, well, grim feel.
Right. Traditional dark tourism, fundamentally, it's about the site or the event. It usually focuses on a specific, often large-scale human tragedy. Think day trips to concentration camps, major battlefields, maybe disaster zones. The suffering itself is the main point of the visit.
And comfort dark tourism, how does that contrast?
It's much more property-centric. And the history is cumulative. We're talking about buildings that have stood for centuries, maybe as grand homes, maybe early hotels. The main focus is appreciating the building itself, the architecture, the design, the top-notch hospitality. The ghost stories are part of the local folklore. Layers of history that built up organically over time, often long after whatever original event might have happened. They add richness, but they aren't the sole reason for being there.
And that difference is so important when we talk ethics, isn't it? Which is a huge deal for travelers today. Comfort dark tourism seems to sidestep that really difficult ethical issue of, exploiting recent raw tragedy just for a thrill.
That's the absolute key difference. And maybe the most important ethical point is the money side. The revenue from these luxury stays, it directly funds the preservation. And preserving these massive ancient buildings is incredibly expensive. We really need listeners to grasp this. You pay a premium because keeping centuries-old structures safe and authentic costs a fortune.
Can you give us a sense of scale on that? What are we actually funding when we book, say, a tower room in a castle from the 1600s?
Well, you're funding things like specialized structural work, making sure the walls don't crumble. You're paying for experts to preserve original features, like plasterwork or wood carvings, even ensuring irreplaceable items inside, just replacing one pane of glass in a 17th century window, for instance. It's not a quick trip to the hardware store. You need special glass, custom fitting craftsmen who know period techniques. It can cost 10 times a normal window. So yeah, that $500 for your room might literally pay for replacing 1 square foot of historically accurate roof tile.
So these places attract what our sources are calling primary dark tourists, people genuinely interested in the history, the learning aspect, and they tend to be more respectful, right? Compared to maybe secondary tourists who are just like ticking off a spooky bucket list item.
Exactly. Let's make that concrete for listeners. A primary tourist at, say, the Langham in London might be studying the original floor plans on the historical tour. A secondary tourist might be the one running down the hall yelling, "Redrum," trying to fake a ghost sighting for TikTok. The hotels really rely on the respect and the spending power of that primary tourist to keep things going.
And this focus on preservation highlights something important. These places weren't built to be haunted attractions. The Stanley Hotel, it opened in 1909 as a luxury spot for people recovering from tuberculosis. Its spooky fame came decades later, mostly because of Stephen King.
Right, and Ballygally Castle, built in 1625 as a fortified home. The ghost stories came much, much later. It's interesting, the sources picked up on a new search term gaining traction in 2025, ethical hauntings. It shows travelers are thinking more consciously about this. They want the thrill, sure, but they want to feel okay about how they're getting it. And these top-tier properties, they've managed to use the ghost stories as enrichment, a storytelling layer, rather than just sensationalizing tragedy.
Okay, let's dive into our first big case study, maybe the most iconic. The Stanley Hotel, Estes Park, Colorado. This place is just the perfect example of that Edwardian elegance meets eerie vibe, all set against those incredible Rocky Mountains.
The architecture alone is a statement piece. It's colonial revival, which back in 1909, out in the American West, wasn't just pretty. It was saying stability, classic taste, established wealth. You've got that gleaming white facade, the famous red roof, those huge verandas, the big Corinthian columns. It was designed to make wealthy guests feel safe, refined, and definitely not on the rough frontier anymore.
And technically it was amazing for its time. Freeland Oscar Stanley, the Stanley steamer guy, built it for wealthy East Coasters needing that mountain air. And guests were apparently blown away. It had full electric lighting, telephones in the rooms, modern plumbing, things that weren't even fully standard in the White House yet.
That tech aspect is really interesting, actually. Makes you wonder. If Stanley was putting in all this cutting-edge stuff, maybe some of that residual energy isn't just from tragedy, but from the sheer force of that industrial ambition stamped onto the place. Just a thought.
But what's really wild is how just one guest over one short stay completely reshaped the identity of this huge 140-room luxury hotel. Stephen King's visit in September 1974, he and his wife Tabitha were the only guests right before they closed for the winter. It's proper literary folklore now.
Oh, totally. King himself tells the story. He had this intense nightmare about his young son being chased down the hotel corridors by a fire hose that came alive. Woke him up, he went for a cigarette, looked out at the mountains, and apparently by the time he finished that smoke, the whole structure of The Shining had basically downloaded into his brain.
Which, of course, makes room 217 the absolute epicenter. That's where King stayed. It's the most requested room by far, commands the biggest price premium, and the ghost associated with it is Elizabeth Wilson, the head housekeeper back in the day. She was injured in a gas explosion in that very room in 1911.
And her ghostly activities are, well, surprisingly helpful. Guests report finding their clothes unpacked and neatly put away, luggage tidied up, a general feeling of being looked after by this unseen, maybe slightly maternal presence.
Wait, hold on. A ghost that unpacks for you? That kind of elevates the haunting from terrifying to weirdly convenient. So you're paying that 30–50% extra for, like, spectral housekeeping?
Huh. Maybe that's the ultimate comfort in comfort dark tourism. But the paranormal stuff isn't all neat and tidy. The whole fourth floor is famously active. It used to be the staff quarters, the attic space. Maybe that concentrates the energy.
Yeah, people report hearing children's laughter up there, echoing in the hallways. And room 428 is known for heavy footsteps, furniture being moved around. That's supposedly linked to Rocky Mountain Jim James Nugent, an early, colorful character from Estes Park history.
And don't forget the sort of structural legends. There's a belief that there might be some kind of portal, maybe over the main staircase. It's used to explain why there's so much activity concentrated in that area. That includes reports from room 401, which got a lot of attention on ghost hunters, and room 407, connected to a Lord Dunraven figure.
So if you're listening and thinking you want to book one of these spirited rooms, 217, 401, 407, 428, our sources are crystal clear. Plan way, way ahead. You're looking at 3 to 6 months out minimum, especially June through October peak season. Room 217 for Halloween 2025. Apparently it was snapped up by midsummer.
And logistically, they've really leaned into the lore, haven't they? They offer 3 different tours. The historic Stanley tour, The Night Spirit Tour for the ghost stories, and the Shining Tour, focusing on the King connection. They cover quite a bit of ground, apparently over a mile of walking, so wear comfy shoes. And yeah, those tours sell out just as fast as the rooms do.
They've also had to really adapt to the whole social media thing, haven't they? Stricter rules now about filming and bringing in ghost hunting gear.
Yeah, and that goes right back to that idea of be a guest, not an invader. They had to bring in quiet hours and equipment limits because some guests, probably those secondary tourists we talked about, were being disruptive, making loud videos, bothering other people who might just be there for the national park or the hotel's history. It's a tricky balance, using the lore but keeping those high-end hospitality standards up.
Okay, let's shift gears. We're leaving the American West and heading across the Atlantic to see how history gets preserved on the coast of Northern Ireland. We're talking about Ballygally Castle Hotel. An amazing spot, steeped in real 17th century history right there on the beautiful Antrim Coast Road.
Yeah, this place is just incredible for architectural preservation. It was built way back in 1625 by a Scottish settler, James Shaw. And it's a fantastic example of what they call early plantation-era fortification, meaning it wasn't just built to look impressive, it was built to defend.
So you can really see that, can't you? The classic Scottish baronial-style turrets, cone-shaped roofs, and those walls, 5 feet thick. That's serious defense.
Exactly. Walls that thick were needed back then, protection against cannon fire, sieges during pretty turbulent times. And you could still spot the musket loop's tiny openings for firing guns, which date back to the 1641 rebellion. Really intense period of conflict there.
It really is like stepping back in time. The hotel has 54 rooms now, but for the real deal, you want the tower rooms, right?
Absolutely. They're in the original 1625 part of the castle. Recognized as the oldest hotel bedrooms, still in continuous use in Northern Ireland, you even get to them via the original stone spiral staircase. Imagine the history in those steps.
And just like the Stanley, Ballygally has tapped into modern tourism trends too. It's a great base for exploring Giant's Causeway, loads of Game of Thrones locations nearby.
Yeah, and they do things like themed afternoon teas to pull in that younger crowd who might be there for the pop culture connections.
But the real star, the resident everyone wants to know about, is Lady Isabella Shaw. Her story is heartbreaking, really rooted in the harsh realities for women back in the 17th century. She was Lord James Shaw's wife, and the story goes he locked her in the tower room because she gave birth to a daughter, not the son and heir he wanted.
Oh, yeah, it shines a really stark light on inheritance laws and the position of women back then. The legend says the isolation drove her mad, and she either fell or was pushed from the tower window. Her ghost is often described as, well, friendly, surprisingly, still searching for the child she lost.
So, a different kind of haunting. Sad, maybe maternal, tied to that historical injustice. What do guests actually report experiencing?
It's the classic stuff, but with interesting details. Mysterious knocking sounds, definitely. But also a really specific scent, like musty vanilla, not just old dust that sometimes comes before seeing an apparition in period clothing. And big temperature shifts are common too. Apparently it can spike or drop 10 degrees, just like that, for no reason.
And the hotel seems to handle her story respectfully. They have that dedicated ghost room up in the tower showing where she was supposedly confined, but you can't stay in it overnight.
Right, if you want that atmosphere, you book the tower rooms.
Yeah.
And you have to specifically ask for them when you book.
What I found really interesting in our research was how Isabella's story is having a bit of a moment now. It's getting traction on social media, with feminist historians using her tale to talk about historical oppression.
Absolutely. And the castle seems to be leaning into that, enriching their tours, giving more historical context, connecting the ghost folklore with a serious discussion about 17th century gender politics. It really elevates the whole experience beyond just a spooky story.
Booking-wise, sounds like midweek is your best bet for those tower rooms. Demand for October 2025 is apparently so crazy they had to start a waitlist just for cancellations.
It just shows, doesn't it? That combination of powerful history, authentic old architecture, and a compelling story. It's just irresistible for today's traveler.
Okay, from the windswept coast of Northern Ireland, let's head to Scandinavia. This is where things get really, really interesting because the eerie meets seriously elite food. We're talking about Dragsholm Castle in Denmark.
Yeah, Dragsholm is this incredible, maybe even slightly shocking mix of two very high-end niches. The place itself is ancient, dates back to around 1215. It's Denmark's oldest non-religious building still standing. Its history is wild, owned by royalty, used as a state prison during the Reformation. only became a luxury hotel relatively recently in 1937.
But its main claim to fame today, aside from the ghosts, is the food, isn't it? Dragsholm Slot Gourmet. It's in the castle cellar, looks amazing, and it's had a Michelin star since 2017.
And it's not just good food. It's intense, super-focused Nordic gastronomy. The chef, Claus Henriksen, is all about the local Langham terroir. That means they're sourcing ingredients practically from the castle grounds, tying the food directly to the ancient land you're staying on. It's quite something.
We're talking a big tasting menu, right? Seasonal, 14 courses called Time and Place. Costs around DKK 2,200, which is roughly 240 pounds per person, and that's before wine. So this attracts a crowd where the food is the main event. The ghosts are almost like this fascinating historical bonus to an absolutely world-class meal.
And that context is really important because Dragsholm also holds the title of Europe's most haunted castle. They claim something like over 100 spirits.
Whoa, okay, the lore here gets incredibly specific. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the big three ghosts they mention. First, the White Lady, Celeste.
Right. Noblewoman, fell in love with a commoner, got pregnant. Her father, furious about the scandal, apparently bricked her up alive inside a castle wall, still wearing her white dress. Grim. But this story has, well, physical backing, doesn't it? During work in the 1930s, workers actually found a skeleton inside a wall, dressed in rags that looked like they were once a white gown.
Exactly. That verifiable sort of forensic link, it just elevates the whole story beyond folklore. You can actually see a memorial marking the spot through glass today. Her ghost is said to still be searching for her child, her lover.
Then there's a real historical figure, the Earl of Bothwell, James Hepburn. He was the third husband of Mary, Queen of Scots. He was imprisoned at Dragsholm, really cruelly, from 1573 to 1576. Our sources say he was chained to a pillar in the basement, a pillar you can still see.
Yeah, the harsh conditions apparently drove him mad. People report hearing the sound of heavy chains rattling down in the basement. And maybe the most dramatic claim is seeing his ghost riding a carriage in the courtyard like he's still trying to escape, over and over. And finally, there's the Grey Lady, a former servant. Her story is different, though.
Much gentler. She apparently died from complications from medicine the castle lord gave her. But her ghost isn't angry, it's grateful. She supposedly wanders around looking for her master, wanting to thank him for his kindness before she passed, a much softer kind of haunting.
So if you want to book this amazing experience, what's the strategy?
The gourmet stay package, the one combining the room, and that Michelin-starred dinner that sells out first, always. The castle releases booking dates quarterly, exactly 3 months ahead. Demand is intense from foodies and dark tourists.
And for the spooky side, you need to ask for rooms in the main castle building itself, right? Not the other buildings on the estate. Though, word of warning about the top floor tower room. Historically amazing, but known for having really uneven sloping floors. Part of its 800-year-old charm, I guess.
And perfectly illustrating that comfort-dark tourism balance, they have strict rules about ghost hunting gear. You won't find people waving EMF meters around in the Michelin-starred restaurant. Why? To protect that sophisticated dining experience for the guests who are primarily there for the world-class food and see the history as the main draw.
All right, our fourth stop takes us to London, to the Langham Hotel, a place that just screams Victorian grandeur. It practically invented the idea of the modern luxury hotel in Europe.
Oh, absolutely. Opened in 1865. The Langham was the first grand hotel in Europe, even had the Prince of Wales, the future King Edward VII, doing the opening ceremony. Huge deal.
And the features back then were mind-blowing for 1865. Full electric lighting, hydraulic lifts, rising rooms, they called them early air conditioning, proper bathrooms in every room, just incredible Victorian innovation and confidence on display.
And it started traditions we still see today. It was the very first place in the world to serve afternoon tea as a commercial thing back in 1865. And they still serve it daily in the Palm Court. That's a 160-year-old tradition right there. Costs about $85 now. A direct taste of Victorian high society.
The hotel's spooky reputation seems to have really ramped up in the 1950s, after the BBC actually owned parts of the building for a while. But the stories really seem to cluster around one specific spot, room 333. People call it London's most haunted hotel room.
Yeah, let's get into the details of who's supposedly checked in but never left room 333. The most commonly reported ghost is a Victorian doctor. The story is incredibly grim. He allegedly murdered his new wife in the room on their honeymoon, then killed himself.
Ooh, that's a heavy history for a luxury suite. And the descriptions are chillingly specific, aren't they?
Very. He's often described with blank eyes, gray hair, And weirdly, missing the lower half of his leg, so he sort of hovers about 2 feet off the ground.
That level of detail is often linked to really strong residual energy, isn't it? Like a psychic imprint.
Possibly. The most famous modern account comes from a BBC sports presenter, James Alexander Gordon, back in 1973. He woke up, saw this glowing ball of light that then formed into that exact Victorian doctor figure. When the ghost started moving towards him, Gordon apparently bolted from the room in total terror, needed relocating. And interestingly, reports often seem to spike in October.
But it's not just the doctor in 333, is it? There are others.
Right. There's a German prince figure, supposedly jumped from a fourth-floor window just before World War I. He's seen walking through walls, and his appearance often coincides with a sudden, sharp drop in temperature.
And then you've got ghosts tied to the building's wider history. Napoleon III lived there during his exile. He apparently haunts the basement areas now.
And there's a World War II soldier figure, too. Seen walking or jumping through walls that apparently matched the building's original layout before it was damaged in the war and rebuilt, like he's stuck in that older version of the building.
The activity in room 333 isn't just seeing things either. It gets physical. There are reports of something actually throwing sleeping guests out of bed.
Which is, well, that's a serious disruption to your five-star experience.
Definitely. Which leads to that famous incident in 2014 with the England cricket team, Stuart Broad, some other players.
Yeah, they reported taps turning on and off by themselves in the middle of the night. Strange feelings. They got so spooked they apparently demanded to be moved at 3 a.m. That's where the Langham slick service meets the seriously strange.
So how does that work? How do you even book this infamous room? And what do the staff do when guests understandably freak out?
You have to request room 333 specifically, usually by phone. It's not just bookable online. And the staff are trained to be very discreet, very professional. If a guest has a genuinely bad experience, they're immediately offered another room, usually an upgrade, very quietly, to maintain that luxury service standard.
But people still want to stay there.
Oh, absolutely. Demand is huge. October is the peak time for requests. For Halloween 2025, it was apparently booked solid by early August.
Wow. So if you can't snag 333, the advice is to ask for a room on the third or fourth floor generally for the best chance of, well, activity.
Okay, for our last case study, we're making a really sharp turn. We're moving away from grand hotels and luxury completely. We're heading into the world of true crime immersion, forensic history. This is our essential contrast. The Lizzie Borden House in Fall River, Massachusetts.
Yeah, the difference is stark. This isn't a fancy hotel at all. It's a pretty modest house built in 1845, wood frame construction. It operates as a B&B, but it's really a museum first. The appeal isn't luxury. It's this intense, incredibly detailed focus on the history, the crime itself.
It is, of course, the actual site of those infamous brutal hatchet murders in 1892, Andrew and Abby Borden. And the house is restored meticulously to look just like it did back then. It lets you step right into the crime scene, essentially. The guides, they focus on presenting the facts, the evidence from the trial, very impartially. They let you draw your own conclusions like you're on the jury.
The immersion must be incredibly intense. The rooms are even named after people involved in the case, the Lizzie and Emma suite. The room named after the maid, Bridget Sullivan. And the room that costs the most, the one everyone wants, the John V. Morse room. That's the room where Abby Borden's body was actually found.
Yeah. And if you stay overnight, it's not just a room key. You get extended private tours that go late into the night.
Yeah.
And the breakfast. They actually try to serve something similar to what the Bordens ate on that fateful morning. Though, thankfully, they offer modern options, too, if 19th century breakfast isn't your thing.
This really takes that primary dark tourist idea to the extreme, doesn't it? You mentioned the forensic history focus. Can you give an example? What kind of detail did they go into?
Well, a common point guides focus on is the alleged murder weapon itself, the hatchet. The prosecution argued Lizzie cleaned it, maybe even broke the handle, after the murders. So guides will discuss the specific testimony about the condition of the axe head found in the basement, the conflicting accounts of when it was supposedly damaged, and link that directly to the physical locations in the house where the bodies were discovered. It was very detailed.
And there's a key operational point here that actually funds the upkeep of this specific historic home. Overnight, guests have to leave their rooms during the day, right? Between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m.
That's right, because that's when the public day tours happen. And the money from those day tours is absolutely vital. It pays for the constant, meticulous restoration needed, getting the wallpaper right, sourcing period furniture, just the basic structural upkeep on a nearly 200-year-old wooden house. Without those day tours, the overnight experience couldn't happen.
Paranormally, the theory here is less about specific ghosts and more about residual energy, isn't it? The idea that such a violent, traumatic event left a kind of psychic stain.
Exactly. And the reports are consistently disturbing. The guides themselves, the people who know the house best, apparently most refuse to stay there overnight. They talk about hearing disembodied voices, whispers when no one's there, that really strong feeling of being watched. Investigations often pick up cold spots, weird temperature shifts, EMF spikes.
And it gets physical, too. Guests report feeling touched or like someone's playing with their hair while they sleep. It's not the helpful housekeeping ghost of the Stanley. This feels much more raw, directly linked to the violence.
There's a real ethical tension here, too, regarding the town itself. How does Fall River feel about having this, infamous murder house as a major tourist draw?
Our sources suggest it's mixed. For some residents, it's a dark spot on the town's history they wish would fade. For others, it's a unique historical site that brings in vital tourist money and keeps a piece of local history, however grim, preserved.
And the house itself tries to walk that line.
Yeah, apparently the gift shop is a good example. They sell serious academic books about the trial, forensic analyses, right alongside, souvenir axes and maybe slightly kitschy tea towels. It's a strange mix of scholarship and macabre commerce.
And the demand, just like the luxury spots.
Incredible. Driven by the huge interest in true crime podcasts and documentaries, 2025 saw record bookings months in advance. It really proves that whether you want five-star sheets or authentic crime scene immersion, the pull of dark tourism, when it's presented thoughtfully, is incredibly powerful. So this journey through these 5 really different, really incredible places, from the Grand Castle to the infamous murder house, brings us to our final section. How do we, as travelers, engage with this whole comfort dark tourism thing responsibly, ethically?
Yeah, as part of the Urban Herald team, we feel it's crucial to give you, the listener, a kind of code of conduct. This isn't just about having a cool, spooky stay. It's about making sure these unique places survive.
Okay, point number 1. Prioritize the history and architecture. Be that primary tourist we talked about. Before you even think about ghosts, do a little homework on the building itself. Understand why Ballygally has those musket loops from 1625. Learn about the groundbreaking tech in the Stanley back in 1909. Appreciate the structure first.
Second, be a guest, not an invader. This is huge, especially in the luxury places. Respect the quiet hours. Please don't badger the housekeeping staff asking if they've seen a ghost. They're there to do a job, provide service, not be part of the attraction, and follow the rules about filming. They exist for a reason, usually because someone before you was inconsiderate making their TikTok video and bothered other guests. Remember, not everyone there is on a ghost hunt.
Third, respect the rules and the local communities. Understand the practicalities. Get why you have to leave your room at the Lizzie Borden House during the day it funds the place. Understand why Stanley tours can't just barge into occupied rooms. And be mindful of the locals. Remember those tensions in Fall River? Not every town wants to be defined by its darkest historical moment. Be considerate.
Fourth, support preservation. Know what your money is doing. When you pay that premium price, understand it's going towards vital, specialized upkeep. Your room rate at Dragsholm is literally helping keep 800-year-old foundations stable. See it as investing in preserving history, not just paying for a fancy room.
And number 5, maintain perspective and honesty. Go in with an open mind, sure, but keep some healthy skepticism. Acknowledge that, yeah, maybe that shadow was just a shadow. Maybe that knocking sound was just the ancient heating pipes kicking in. It happens. And critically, please don't make stuff up for social media likes. It just undermines the whole experience for everyone else who's seeking something genuine.
When you put it all together, this comfort dark tourism trend, it really offers a pretty sophisticated and potentially ethical way to engage with difficult history and fascinating folklore. These places are so much more than just haunted hotels. They're like living, breathing time capsules. They give you a connection to the past that you just can't get from reading a book.
Yeah, ultimately, this whole niche works best when your main reason for going is that genuine appreciation for the history, the building, the great service, and the ghosts. They become this incredibly rich layer of storytelling that just adds to the depth of the whole experience.
And whether you actually have some kind of unexplained encounter, or you just have a really peaceful night's sleep, followed by an amazing breakfast or afternoon tea. Either way, by choosing to stay in these places, you are literally helping to fund the survival of centuries of architecture, history that might otherwise just crumble away.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on, maybe. What history are you willing to sleep next to in order to help preserve it?
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into these 5 really extraordinary places. They've all found that amazing balance between total comfort and those historical chills.
Keep exploring those fascinating places where history, design, and maybe a little mystery all come together. Until next time, from all of us here on the Urban Herald team.